Hi everybody, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please remember to leave a thumbs up and comment on the video so I can engage with you all on a personal level. Don't forget, as always, if you need to help support this channel a little bit further, the Patreon campaign is always running. Thank you very much for watching. So already another top 10 list for you. Mind me, I must love you guys. Also, do you like the two posters I got up back there? Yeah, you check out my State of Playing promo about that. You know, I think they look quite nice up there actually. So this is a follow-up to a top 10 list I did earlier in January for my top 10 anticipated games for 2022. Regardless of the year, everybody likes to know what we creators, or anybody really, is looking forward to in the upcoming period. Well, I thought, you know what, as much as there are some cool games I like, and I do look forward to some new stuff coming out, because maybe I'm getting jaded, maybe I'm more critical, I don't know, I'm less looking forward to new games because I'm a little bit concerned that that new game is going to be, say, not as good as I would hope. Like, I'm setting myself up for disappointment. Whereas with expansions, which is the focus of this list, I get excited about them full stop. Because a new game, I don't know if it's going to be good or not. And I've had disappointments. I mean, Efferfield's a perfect example. I was looking forward to that, and then it didn't work out for me, and I'm like, oh, but it could have been amazing. I don't know, and that was a problem. But then if you tell me, ooh, Sentinels in the Multiverse is getting a new expansion? Ooh, yes, please. And there's even rumours on the grapevine that Spirit Island has one in the works. You know, they're not going to be on this list because it's not even on BoardGameGeek yet. But, you know, yes, sign me up. My favourite game's getting expansion. Of course I'm going to be excited. So with this list, putting it together was a little bit tricky. Firstly, there's not a lot of expansions that I'm looking forward to in 2022. When I did the list and did my research, I'm like, oh, there really isn't a lot on here. I'm not entirely certain if I can get 10. Thankfully I could, but I could barely give you 12 or 13, frankly. But on top of that, searching this was not as easy as it seemed. On BoardGameGeek, the only way you can search for an expansion is to tick a box that says expansion for base game and then board game category, and then put in the years you're looking for. That's the only way you can do it. Now, there's a flaw with this system. Firstly, as I was going through the list, all I could find was mostly stupid little promos and little tiny add-ons from Kickstarters appearing in the list. Seriously, I think you could come up with a top 100 list if you were obsessed with something like Marvel United, 7th Citadel, or Kingdom Death Monster. Seriously, everything is just tiny little hero miniatures for stuff like that. Don't care, either way. But then on top of this, there's a problem with the database. Oh yeah, go figure, there's a problem with the BGG database. But two things. Firstly, if the date is put on there as whatever, 2021, 2022, it never gets updated. So anything that got delayed from 2021 doesn't appear if you search for 2022. It still has 2021 on it. So there are a couple of examples on this list where they should have come out last year, but COVID, disruptions, production, whatever, have meant that we still haven't got them yet. So they are technically still valid for this list. On top of this, and this is not so much a fault in the system, it's a fault with whoever put the data on in the first place, fail, is that if you don't tick the box, expansion for base game, when you're inputting the data on there, it doesn't show up on the list. You have to tick that box. And there is one good example on this list where there is an expansion which is clearly coming out later this year that someone didn't tick the box on BGG, so it doesn't show up in the search engine. Fail. Yeah, so this was a little bit of a mind bender to try and research, but I have 10 for you, and without further ado, let's crack on.
Get on with it.
One caveat, sorry, there is no expansion on this list that goes for a game that hasn't been released. So, I mean, the ones I did on my last year, like Frostpunk and Endless Winter and stuff like that, well, they got expansions coming out, yes, but we don't know if the game's any good yet. So, and frankly, the expansion is just a Kickstarter add-on, barely even considered to be an expansion, so those do not count. Anyway, 10. This is a modular expansion for a game, a very popular polyomino game, with one of the best themes you could shove on a polyomino game. Why is it one of the best themes? Because pretty much most people like cats. Cats are cute, they're lovely, they're adorable, and I would love to have one in the future when I'm living with someone. This is the Isle of Cats, Kittens and Beasts. It's a free modular expansion coming out later this year. It's already been kickstarted, although I'm just going to wait for the retail version, honestly. But it introduces free modules for the game. That's all it does, but the modules all sound pretty good. You've got kittens, which besides looking like the cutest little things on the planet, I'm going to go squee every time I play this game with all the little kittens. Essentially, you've now got an incentive to go first every round, because a lot of the times you never really cared, but now you have these little kittens that can go on your board as well. You get a module for beasts, which are these beasts like meeples that you put around, but they've got to be next to specific cats, so there's another underlying sort of strategic planning thing there. And then thirdly, you've got an event deck which has rule-changing implications in certain rounds and potential other point-scoring opportunities. 3 very simple sounding expansions. Now granted, they're going to range in complexity. I think the kittens is the easiest and the events is the hardest, but the cats is not a complicated game anyway. I feel it does need a few other ways to get points though. This is my sort of one flaw with Isle of Cats. Yeah, you've got all those lesson cards, but some of them aren't really worth going for when it comes to points. And some stuff like the rats, nobody really cares about. It doesn't make enough of an impact on the game to care about the minuses from rats. But adding these kittens and beasts and these event cards should give me more ways to score points, and that all sounds pretty good. Not to mention kittens! Squee! My number 9, we're going to move to Portal games, and this one is low on the list, mainly because previous history hasn't done this quite well.
You cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep just now.
Empires of the North, Wrath of the Lighthouse. This is a solo campaign expansion to Empires of the North. Easily the best out of the whole kind of Imperial Settlers 51st State style games for me. Now, this is a game I pretty much play only solo, so to have a solo expansion is going to, sing the praises to me. But this is essentially, I think, like a 15 scenario campaign that you can play individually. So thankfully I don't have to play this in campaign mode. I can just play one of 15 new scenarios in it. But essentially it's going to allow me to play all the way through multiple different games, different challenges, have cards that I get as I go through each scenario. It's just essentially a big solo boost for the game. Now, the reason it's not higher, because I do like Empires of the North a lot, especially with all the different factions I've got, is because Portal previously did a similar thing for Imperial Settlers, and that one didn't go down too well with critics, and with me as well personally. So I'm hoping that this one is kind of a refinement of that system, that makes the campaign a bit easier to pilot, a bit more interesting. But even if the campaign itself is not great, I should at least be able to get something out of 15 new solo scenarios to the game, which I think the game could badly do with. I think it's not got enough solo scenarios at present, so another 15? Sign me up. Now my number 8 almost never happened. No kidding, this one nearly got cancelled because unfortunately Minion Games went under and they were the ones producing this expansion. I believe Grail Games are the ones who have now picked this up, and for someone like me who originally backed the expansion, we're now going to finally get the Cold War expansion for the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. Whew, gotta say that in one breath. These stupidly long titles. I just call it Energy Empire. But this was the spin-off in the Manhattan Project series, and it's a really great Euro game. Midway, easy to teach, lots of sort of tactical opportunities and strategies to go for. It really is a cool system. Doesn't get enough buzz. But this is an expansion for that game, which, to be honest, I don't know very much about. But introducing more options, more ways to get points, more event cards, more buildings, just generally giving me more of the good stuff is enough for me to get excited about an expansion for this game. But the fact that this is like being almost lost to time, it was never going to get made, it's just a bit of a boost to actually know it will get made, it will get delivered, and sooner or later in 2022 we're going to get it. And I look forward to getting this to the table and finding out if it was worth the wait. Hopefully it was, but yeah, give me more stuff for this game, because as great as it is, I felt like an expansion was kind of due, and this is going to be a nice way to refresh my interest in it and get it back on the table, back in place. That's what expansions are great for. You have a game that you love, but you just haven't brought it out in a while. You feel like it just needs a little bit of freshness to it. Expansions do that. Doesn't matter if you think the game is the best thing ever. Time is a killer when it comes to these games, but to be able to say, oh, I want to try out these new additions in it, that's what gets you excited. That's why I love expansions so much. So, fingers crossed, the Cold War for Energy Empire, let's hope it's good. My number 7 is another overdue expansion which was meant to come out last year, but is now coming out this year, although at least BGG actually recognizes it's a 2022 expansion. This is for my second favorite game in the farming genre, as I'm going to call it, which is all those Uwe Rosenberg style games where you're farming for stuff, growing corn, growing veg, and all that gubbins. This is for Caverna, and it's called Frantic Fiends. Now, normally in Caverna, you have dwarfs that you're controlling, and there you can, well, dwarfs, they can be any race now with the expansion that they had before, but now you've got orcs who come in and start plundering your stuff. You can set traps for them, you can sort of goad them into traps, or, like, you know, make life harder for your opponents, but it's a case of whether you start making axes and various weaponry in order to drive them off, or you kind of just suck it up and take the damage and, you know, deal with it in some other manner. This is overdue for a while, and I look forward to this maybe promoting a little bit of extra player interaction amongst everybody at the table. Plus the idea that I'm trying to grow my farm whilst also going, get off, so get away with these dumb orcs, would just be quite fun. Plus orcs, when it comes to orcs, they're the butt of everybody's humour, and I can guarantee the jokes and references are going to go flying when we play this. But, Caverna hits the table every now and again, mainly because of the previous expansion, but I think it could use a little bit of extra life, another reason to bring it out for a few more plays, and so this one I'm hoping will do just that. It's already a fantastic farming game. Sorry, Agricola, but Caverna outweighs you, and I know that's probably going to get enough dislikes, but, solid expansion for a solid game. Let's hope. My number 6 is a prime example of what I was talking about earlier. An expansion that should have come out last year, had a date for 21, but didn't get updated on BoardGameGeek, so I nearly missed this one out. It's a good thing I like the game so much that I didn't miss it out. This is another expansion, probably, hopefully, I'd say the last expansion, because it is getting a little bit bloated at this point, for the pursuit of happiness, and it's called Nostalgia. Nostalgia is an expansion where, firstly, it's going to bolster all the decks. Great, I love getting more variety in this game. Give me more projects, items, dates, jobs, whatever. It's always good fun. That I don't mind bloating up. But as well as getting a big box in the Kickstarter, which is definitely needed at this point, because literally my box is like crammed up to the rim here, but this is going to introduce something called a Reminiscence deck. Double-sided cards, which you get at the start of the game, and they give you more things to plan for. This is about all that we've sort of been told about it, but bear in mind, I don't play these on Tabletopia in advance, I ain't got time for that. But with this, I'm a big fan of nostalgia. Nostalgia is just something I enjoy. I like reminiscing about, oh yeah, I used to grow up with Doctor Who, watch John Pertwee and Tom Baker as a kid, and I remember World of Warcraft sitting on that rating with a 56k modem, trying to, hogging the internet so nobody in my house could call anybody because I was too busy raiding as my priest. Then stuff like that, and even old TV shows, as I mentioned, Only Fools and Horses, a favourite of me and my family. I like reminiscing about old stuff. And one of my favourite YouTube critics, in fact, Nostalgia Critic, it's nostalgia in the name. It just works for me. So thematically, this one is going to resonate with me quite a lot, and I hope that mechanically it's worth putting in. The problem I had with the previous expansion experiences is that I felt it was quite a lot of faff for what you get. It's not a bad expansion, but I don't often throw it in because it kind of elongates the game even more without providing enough extra coolness, although the community expansion was very good. So I'm hoping that this one will just be a nice, easy deck that I can just throw in, boom, easy rules, nothing much to teach, but gives me something that is not only thematically close to my heart, but also mechanically fun to do and talk about while we're playing the game. So, this is hoping, but I look forward to getting this along with the big box and having this giant collection of the Pursuit of Happiness. It is the Game of Life Euro Edition. It is fantastic. I hope this expansion does it justice. Now, you might think my number 5 is a little bit of cheat, but no, I'm counting this as well. Granted, I'm not going to get too excited over many expansions which literally just add more cards and that's about it, especially when they're just campaign expansions, particularly in this case. This is for the Marvel Champions LCG. It's called Sinister Motives. Now, like I say, you're probably thinking, well, hang on a minute, we've had Mad Titan Shadow, we've had Guardians, we've had the Hydra one, whatever it was called. It's like, really, why is this one deserving of such a place on your list? It's just another campaign with more cards. Cool, yes, and to be fair, I'm not going to complain about more cards. But this one is another one of those, I suppose, the nostalgic resonating close to me here. My favourite Marvel superhero is Spider-Man. Side note, go watch No Way Home, it was fantastic! Go watch it now! this one is gonna resonate with me because I used to watch the cartoon series, the animated Spider-Man series or whatever it was called when I was a kid back in the 90s. The one that had that weird rock style soundtrack with the guitar as the intro and recycled a lot of footage a lot. But the idea with this is that Sinister Motives is not only going to give us 2 more spider people, I forget, was it Ghost Spider and Miles Morales, which will be really cool. Again, Into the Spider-Verse, fantastic film, can't wait for the sequel, please be good. But the, Miles Morales is already going to be cool to have as a character. I mean, I get to play Miles Morales Spider-Man alongside the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and have the 2 of them in a cool multiverse campaign battle. That'd be sweet, just from a thematic, like, nerdgasm perspective. But the Sinister Motives means that we get the Sinister Six. These are the best villain group in Marvel, I find. I mean, I love Venom, love Dark Octopus, love, I've forgotten who it was, like Vulture. Vulture was better than I expected in the Spider-Man movies. You've also got Electro and you've got Sandman. Oh, and I love Mysterio, yeah. So, some of my favourite Marvel villains, most of which in the Spider-Man universe, all in one box. I cannot wait to face these guys in a into the Spider-Verse, whatever you want to call it, type setting. These, I think, are going to resonate with me a lot more than even Thanos, to be honest. I mean, I love Thanos and I love the Infinity War, but out of all those previous expansions, I'm like, these are cool. I'm glad to have got them, but, I could have lived without them if need be. This one, though, I am going to be going gaga for it and playing it as soon as I get it. No excuses, no delays for time. As soon as I get this, I'm playing it. My number 4 is an expansion, probably the final expansion, at least I hope it's the final expansion, I don't want this getting too bloated as well, to one of my favourite worker placement games in existence, the great mid-weight Architects of the West Kingdom. It's Works of Wonder. This one shouldn't be too long before it comes out, I think, at this rate, but yeah, definitely looking forward to this. This is going to introduce a sideboard with a princess and a profiteer who wander around the main board and can give you bonuses for various things while you go to them. So it gives you a tactical reason to go to their locations. But the idea is that players are competing for different Works of Wonder on the sideboard. There's new consequence cards that you've got to deal with, and basically it's going to add more strategic paths to victory with the use of a new influence resource. Now, the only worry I have about this, which is why it's not higher on this list even, is that it's already a pretty good thing to teach with the first expansion, the Artisans one? Because I can teach Artisans with the base game and people don't even have to know it was an expansion. This one though, an extra sideboard, an extra mechanic, an extra resource, this is definitely going to be something that I'm a little bit concerned I might not be able to teach to new players of this game. But that being said, most people I know have played this game by now, so that hopefully won't be a problem. But still, I just don't want this game to get bloated, that's the only thing. But yeah, give me more stuff to do, more paths to victory, because people will sort of think, well, I'm pretty much doing buildings or cathedrals, and maybe there's 1 or 2 other paths that you can take depending on your apprentices. I kind of want more variety. Well, hopefully Works of Wonders will do just that. But if nothing else, it means I get to bring out this game to the table, which I love a ton, so not going to complain about that. Looking forward to this one. In fact, I don't know when it's coming out in 2022, but hopefully soon. I'm definitely excited for it. Works of Wonder. My number 3 is probably the epitome of expansions that's going to rejuvenate some new life into a game that I already love, but probably haven't got to the table as much lately, mainly because it's quite a complex system to learn. This is kind of a mixture of expansions, but predominantly it is the Book of Adventures for Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island, whatever. But Robinson Crusoe. So this is a great co-op game from Portal Games where you're trying to survive on an island with different scenarios, anything from a Swiss Family Robinson scenario to Indiana Jones, or even just surviving to build a campfire and not freeze to death. It's a really cool, if somewhat nigh impossible game to play and win.
That's putting it mildly, 007.
Now, there's already about 7 or 8 scenarios for it, if you're not counting the special expansion it had. But this is a book compendium, which has been drawn up by Portal, as well as by fans, and it's basically a collection of all these different scenarios for the game, which are going to have, gauges based on its complexity, its difficulty, and they're going to be really varied. to get this game to the table, this is how you get me to play it again. Give me a giant list of scenarios that I can go, what do I feel like? Teaching new players, nothing too drastic, but let's have something quite fun. There you go, that's one. And the fact that this is going to have so many in there is just going to breathe new life into this great game. Now, I mentioned this was kind of a mixture of expansions before. That's mainly because I've got this as part of the Kickstarter, which is not only going to give me like the upgrade pack, but it will give me that campaign, that tutorial campaign that you can do for it. Fantastic, this game needs one of those, so it means I'll be able to teach it to new players a lot easier. But on top of that, a nice big box to hold everything. Yep, big boxes are good for this sort of thing. And to be fair, my copy badly needs it. But mainly, it's about that book. More scenarios for a cool game, definitely something I'm looking forward to. Now my number 2 is a slight cheat because it is technically 2 expansions, but frankly this could have been released as 1 expansion and it would have been fine. The fact that it's been released as 2 separate doesn't really make sense to me. This is, again, going back to Garphill Games, but we're talking about Viscounts of the West Kingdom this time. Kickstarter, I believe, is happening at some point this month, actually. Maybe it'll have already started by the time this video goes out. But this is for Keeper of Keys / Gates of Gold. These are 2 expansions that Viscounts is going to get, hopefully in 2022, probably by the end of the year, so this is going to be a bit of a wait for me. But I love Viscounts of the West Kingdom. It is one of my favourite games. It is fantastic. It could use an expansion just to introduce a little bit of extra life into it, and that's what these 2 expansions are going to do. Firstly, it's going to give me like more of the tiles, more of the spots, like the starting characters, which are like so good. I love these starting characters, but more townsfolk as well. Love the townsfolk, the variety of all those people that you can get, that are good tactical and strategic opportunities. But they're also going to introduce things like public buildings for you to build over, new chunky player boards, because normally you just got the sort of flimsy card before. Now we're going to have a chunky player board. There's going to be more solo scenarios probably, and it's like, yeah, I forgot to mention actually with the Architects one, that one's getting 6 solo scenarios with a new solo system in it. Another reason I'm looking forward to that one. But Viscounts, yeah, I'm at that stage now where I'm like, love Viscounts, let's have a little bit of extra content. Brilliant. 2 more expansions, give me more variety, don't overcomplicate it. In fact, to be honest, what they're introducing in these 2 expansions doesn't sound like it's going to be that complicated. I should be able to teach this with the base game without too much trouble and just shuffle in all the new townsfolk and starting character cards and have a good, good laugh with it. So yeah, definitely excited to get more content for one of my favorite games, Viscounts. And before I get on to my number 1, I'll quickly mention, you remember what I said earlier about not putting in the right data for the research for this? Yeah, Viscounts of the West Kingdom. None of the expansions have got expansion for base game ticked on the backs, so this doesn't show up in a search. Fail, BoardGameGeek.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but...
I digress. Number 1. This is an expansion for a game that actually should have come out in 2021. It's dated 2021 on BoardGameGeek, it's just been delayed to this year. So fingers crossed I'll be getting this quite soon, hopefully Q1 or if at worst Q2 of this year. Again, shipping and production delays notwithstanding. But one of my favourite games is a cube pusher, which I know freaks a lot of people out, but it's a game where I can inject a lot of theme in it because I kind of invent the story as I go along. But regardless of that, it's just a very fun sandbox Euro game where you are this scum of the earth and you're trying to redeem yourself by acquiring like all these different companions, these pets, grabbing relics, improving your own personality effectively, going out and conquering monsters. You choose what you want to do. I love a good sandbox game, and of course, if you haven't guessed it already, right down there, Vindication Chronicles is this expansion. This one I am so looking forward to. This one not only brings me all the different cards, like more copies of cards to the decks to bolster them up, fantastic. The main mechanic it throws in is this legendary player sheet that you have. Every time you acquire a card in a game, you will now get a narrative prompt card that it kind of adds the narrative for you as to how you acquired that card. great. I don't have to invent it anymore. I now have something to like spell it out. But you get to choose the outcome of the narrative. So it's not like it just gives you a story and that's it. No, you have a choice to make. And based on the choices that you do make, you mark it down in your legendary sheet, and when you fill in certain amounts, you get other bonuses or these new tarot-sized like special cards that can give you new card types, new abilities. It's, you know, it lets you build up a proper story base for your character that you are effectively controlling in Vindication. So now all that dryness is now wettened a little bit. That's a horrible analogy. But basically, you know, that theme that I had to inject myself is now given back to us in a more easier fashion. Yeah, granted, it's still a cube pusher with the attributes at the end of the day, but now all these different story prompts with branching paths and that, I think this will be a really, really cool expansion. I mean, as soon as I get this, I'm going to instantly want to bring Vindication to my club and get it played again with that stuff added. And it doesn't sound complicated to the point where I'd have to leave this out for new players. I have a good feeling that this one's going to be one that I can literally just go, boom, it's in the game, and not even tell anybody that it's an expansion. It should hopefully be a seamless integration. The problem I had with the previous expansion, what was it called? There are leaders and something, but that one I wasn't as big a fan of. I mean, it's fine, it works, but honestly, I rarely play with that expansion. So that one was kind of like a meh one. This one, though, I am like really looking forward to. I expect it to be great. I'm hoping it's great. Don't disappoint me. But yeah, give me these cool little narrative prompts for one of my favorite games, and I'm definitely sold. So Vindication Chronicles, definitely my number one. So yeah, there are my 10 expansions that I'm looking forward to for 2022. There's a couple of honourable mentions for things like the Emissaries of the Veil expansion for Edge of Darkness. It's essentially more content though, so whatever. And there's a Paris and New York map for On the Underground that I'm hoping it's still in production. It's been delayed so much. I'm curious as to what's going on with it really. But come on, Ludi Creations, get a move on. But if it does come out, 2 more maps for an underrated lightweight Euro game about network building underground. That sounds really cool, and I definitely want it. I'm sure there's other expansions out there that people might point out for games I love that I just didn't know of. As I said, BGG didn't exactly make this easy, but at least I don't have to worry about all the different hero miniature packs that you get for things like Marvel United and Kingdom Death Monster, because I don't own either of those 2 games, nor do I have any interest in either of those 2 games. So that made my life easier. But yeah, I'll be curious to know what expansions you're looking forward to, because there were a few on there I saw which are for games that I haven't played or I'm not that big a fan of, so I'm not that fussed. But I'd be curious to know if you're looking forward to those expansions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Tell me whether you're excited for these ones. Especially let me know if there's one that you think I should adore that I haven't thought of yet, because I'm willing to learn at this point. So that's it for now. I'm going to sign off. So until next time, please remember to leave a like and comment on the video, and consider the Patreon if you can. It means the world to me to know that you're willing to help and support the content. Until next time though, you can check out my top 10 anticipated games of 2022 to support this list I've been doing. Or if you're curious about the 2 art pieces on my wall, check out the State of Playing promo video I did earlier this month. Until next time, remember as always, it's only a game. Happy New Year everyone, bye for now.